good morning. We will start now. It's 2 minutes past 9:30, so we can start. Thank you all for joining this webinar specifically for the UK market. So today we are here with part of the Autodesk Forma team, and we have a special guest, Quiva, joining us today. And we will take you through a project that we've set up in City of London, and trying to give you as much information as you need to get started with using Forma at the end of this webinar. So my name is Anouk. I'm a sales development specialist working from the Netherlands. We have my colleague Evan from Denmark, who is a technical sales specialist who will run the demo today. My colleague Ida from customer success from Sweden. So, well, we're from everywhere. And we have Quiva from Arcadis, based in the UK. Let me start with sharing my screen. We have some slides to start with. This is always tricky. Yeah? Is it working or not? Present. Looks good, Anouk. Great. So yes, as mentioned, we will design a sustainable city project and use Forma for that. Of course, starting with the safe harbor statement, you've probably seen this. We're also talking about maybe features that are not yet in Forma or not launched in Forma. So please don't make any decisions based on what we are telling today. I also already started with the introduction. So move on to the content, some practical information. What is Autodesk Forma? We will start with an introduction, what we will cover today, how you can use Forma, how our customers are using Forma. Then we have a customer story by Arcadis, finishing with a live demo and of course Q&A. If you have questions while we are talking, just put them in the Q&A and we will answer them right away. So please do that. Don't wait for the Q&A. Some practical information. We do these webinars ongoing. We have a Get Going with Forma webinar, which is a global webinar, which we do every month to help customers get started with Forma. As mentioned today, this is more focused for the UK, but it's a part of our Forma onboarding webinar series. We also have the Go Further webinar series, which go a little bit more in depth and focus on a specific topic, like, for example, Revit. This site is in question is purely focused for or used for demo purposes, so it is not a real ongoing work. Autodesk Forma, as you know, the platform for our industry, for the AEC industry, the platform that will in the future be your go-to platform, covering the whole workflow from planning to design to operations to the built environment. Today, as we are at the start of a multi-year journey, Forma is here for your planning and early stage. So that's where you'll be using Forma for. But ultimately, we are developing ourselves as the platform for the whole industry. Forma is in the AEC Collection. So if you have an AEC Collection, you can use Forma. If you don't have an AEC Collection, you can use Forma, for example, via trial, just to test it for a 30-day period if you want. Why are our customers using Forma? They're using it to conduct feasibility studies. You have the possibility to access masses, potential to design different proposals for your project, and you can do that much faster than you can at the moment. You can leverage real-time decision support, so you have all insights, valuable insights for your project. You can run analysis, sun, wind, daylight, noise, to make sure you make the right informed decisions for your project. And of course, documenting, communicating is a big part of our platform as well. Today, we're focusing on a city site, but obviously you can also use Forma on a site outside of a city, wherever you want. Today, we will start with setting up your project, fetching relevant data from resources, external resources. we will create a mixed-use design using the line buildings and basic buildings that are offered in Forma, the 3D tools that are offered in Forma, but we also show you briefly how you can use designs that are from other software. So you're not limited to only Forma design options. And then we'll evaluate the qualities of your proposals based upon sun, wind, solar energy, and our new embodied carbon engine. And then we will show you briefly how you can export your design from Forma to Revit to go further with your workflow there. As mentioned, this webinar is a part of our ongoing webinar series. You can watch the webinar recording on our website, or you can sign up for another webinar if you like. Go to the help function in your Forma. There you can see all the webinars, watch them, or sign up for a new one. And then I will stop sharing. No, I won't stop sharing, but I will give the word to Ida and Quiva.
Yeah, thank you, Anouk. Thank you for that. So we have a special guest with us today, Quiva from Arcadis. Very warm welcome to you, Quiva. I will run a short intro about you and see if I'm correct. So Quiva is a solution consultant from Arcadis. You are from Ireland, but you're based in London, right? And you've been practicing architecture for over 10 years, and you are very passionate about leveraging software for sustainability. And when it comes to Arcadis, they are delivering sustainable design, engineering, and consultancy solutions for natural and built assets. And you guys are over 36,000 people in 30 countries. Oh my God, you're a huge firm, which lands you on the second largest architect firm in the world. So warm welcome to you, Quiva. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. Thanks so much for having me in the webinar.
Yeah, we're so happy to have you here. So I just ran through a short intro about you, but can you tell us a little bit more about you, how long you've been using Forma, and which benefits you see with Forma?
Yeah, definitely. So I have been using Forma for quite a long time. We're coming up to 3.5 years, I think, since I first tested Forma. Obviously, in those days, it was called Spacemaker. So it was a really early adoption. And it's been really exciting to follow the journey of the software as well. I think, we're seeing new features being launched all the time. And it's great to see the growth of adoption of Forma within Arcadis.
Cool. So you have, as you mentioned, been using Forma and previous Spacemaker for many years. What kind of made you take the leap and the change to move over to a new software on the market when it was just launched?
Yeah, I think we'd been looking for a solution in this space. We recognized that there was a lot of challenges with the existing workflows, kind of often having to switch between multiple tools, do a lot of repeat work, maybe do some manual, area metrics or calculation. So I think we saw a lot of potential with Forma from the outset, but especially then when it became part of the Autodesk portfolio, that we could see there would be a potential for a much more smooth or straightforward workflow, especially between kind of those existing principal softwares.
Yeah, great. And you are primarily using Forma in the UK. Is there any regulation restrictions around, for example, daylight or something where Forma comes extra handy into play?
Yeah, I think that the sustainability analysis definitely is something that drew us to Forma from the outset. Daylighting is a really great example where particularly in the UK, we have particular targets to meet in terms of minimum daylight criteria, especially for things like residential buildings. So from the outset, we can get feedback on our initial proposals. So that'll let us know if we need to allow for, say, larger glazing areas in particular parts of the building, or potentially look at modifying the building form to make it better.
Cool. Yeah, so for us at Autodesk, sustainability is, also very, very important. But how do you and your team members use Forma for that purpose? You touched a little bit on it, but is there anything else to mention on that?
Yeah, I think what's important to say is that what Forma does for us is makes sustainability analysis accessible for the project teams, and this enables better conversations with our sustainability consultants, both in-house and external. So we find it helps move the conversation along because we already have that initial analysis, so it's possible to get further in depth into those analysis results and see how we can optimize our proposals.
Cool, thank you. Thanks for sharing all of this with us. Lastly, I would like for you to talk a little bit about the user group and the community event that you have coming up in London in June.
Yeah, we're really excited. This is just next week, which seems scarily soon, but we have already had 2 user group events. They were previously branded as the Forma user group last year, and this is the next evolution of that. So this is becoming the design technology user group, just to facilitate kind of more broader discussions. Forma will definitely feature and is particularly at the heart of the session next week, which is looking at the combination of both Forma and Dynamo. And we've got some great speakers lined up, and we'd love anyone here, if they're free to join, it would be great to see you there.
Cool. So it's you can join there via the QR code, right? So if we just leave it a moment, if you want to scan it, please go ahead and register for the event. And as you can see there, it starts at the doors open at 5:45, and the presentation starts at 8:15. So would be super great to have more users in this community.
I think Anouk will be there, and a lot of the Forma team. So
yeah, I will also be there, and so a lot of people.
Right.
This is going to be a lot of fun.
Well, nice.
Great, but thank you so much for taking some time and talking to us a little bit. And I'm gonna hand it over to Evan. Evan, are you ready?
Yes, ready. And thank you, Aoife, for providing some extra input on sort of how you actually use this, right? So it's not just us saying it's a good tool, you should try it. There's actually somebody that people trust saying it. That's really helpful. And I know you're doing so much more fun work with Forma that we didn't have time to touch upon today. So people should really have a look at what you're doing, because it's exciting stuff.
Thank you.
I think Anouk is still in. Yes, perfect. Thanks, Anouk. So as Anouk said, what we'll be looking at today is a basic workflow. So we'll try to, since this is getting started, we'll look at various sort of how can you use Forma, maybe even try today, right? We'll look at what I, as an architect, normally would do when I worked in the business, was competitions, early stage designs. And a lot of times that would start with a client coming in and saying, you know, we have this site, we might want to buy it, or we're thinking of developing it. Can we have a meeting in a few days' time? And we would bring some sketches, some ideas. So that's the workflow. We'll try to recreate in Forma and see how it can be improved and changed if we do that. So as I said, we'll set up the project, do the setup part, then we'll design some proposals. I have cheated a little bit so we can show what you can get in a few hours of work. We don't have that now. And then we'll look at some analysis. First of all, though, if Anouk, you can change to the next one, because we do want to talk a little bit about sustainability. We don't have time to go through all of that as we're working, but I did want to show you these slides quickly. So one of the great benefits of Forma, as we'll look at in a minute, is how we can help you have more sustainability in your projects from early stage. My experience, at least, was that often these things would come in a little bit too late in the process. They would feel, at least to the clients, often like a burden or an extra cost, and it would be difficult to argue why we should add it now. If it's something that's thought in from the very beginning, it's easier to make the argument. So that's what we're trying to do. You can see here, there's a lot of different analysis that's native to Forma. As you know, people think of sustainability in many different ways. For some, sun hours and daylight potential is enough. For others, they really want to get numbers or sort of more engineering parts of it. And for that, like the solar energy or embodied carbon, both still in beta, that's sort of where we're going next, to give you more of those heavy numbers to get you started on your sustainability early. On top of that, if we look at the next slide, we're not the only ones building analysis for Forma at the moment. Now, parking demand might not have that much to do with sustainability, but something like an outdoor area analysis or a sun hour study, those are great tools that other people are building on top of Forma, because that's possible now through our APIs. So if you know there's something missing in your region, or your company does something very clever, see if you can't build it on top of Forma to extend it. But these are pretty advanced workflows. Today, we'll start with something much simpler. So I'll take over from Anouk now and share my screen, and we'll see what we can go up. So this is actually pretty much what I was talking about. Here we're seeing a site in central London, and it's the same proposal. It's just 4 different ways of looking at it. The geometry is the same, but we have some overlay here. So here we can see sun hours. Here we can see wind comfort. Here we can see how much solar energy is hitting our roofs. And here we can see the noise levels for the different parts of the proposal. This is about an hour of work from first typing in the address to getting something like this, maybe 2 to add the facades as well. But it's a very quick way for me as an architect to get a holistic view to see if my proposal is actually performing the way I want it to. So for something like this, well, I can see, green is good, not green, not good. There's some wind issues here, but this central courtyard that was important for my concept, well, that seems to be pretty good there. It's also pretty well lit, and it's shielded from noise. So this might be something I can continue working on, and it's definitely something I'm comfortable sharing with the client and have, an elevated conversation about, because it's not gut feeling, it's actually built on data. So this is where we want to end up. But to end up somewhere, you need to start somewhere. So let's look at how you would normally start in Forma. You would start here. Forma is not a desktop tool, it lives in the cloud. And I'm sure you're used to working with cloud solutions by now, so you know the benefits. Whenever you make a change, it's updated for anybody who needs to see that change and have access the moment you do something. The other thing is, whenever we make a change, and we've updated Forma about 200 times over the last year, it's live the minute we publish. You don't have to restart, reinstall. There's no old formats, not talking to new file formats. It all happens in the background. You just continue working on a product that just gets better and better. And the third thing, of course, is our advanced analysis wouldn't be very happy running on my laptop computer, but they're very happy running in the cloud. And that's what makes them so quick that you can do them, not in hours or sometimes even days or weeks. If you have to do them externally, you can do them in seconds and minutes. To get started, you access your hub from here. And that takes you to an area that should look something like this. It might look a little bit different the first time you log in, but after that, it looks like this. You'll have a lot of great resources you can find over here. For instance, our help center on YouTube channel that also has help videos, as well as a lot of great learning content and even a demo project that you can jump into to get started quickly. This is also where you set your different projects and different folders, who has access to what, and all those kinds of settings. But today we told you we would do setup, design, and then some analysis. So let's do that instead. Imagine it's Wednesday morning-ish, and we have a meeting tomorrow. Let's see what we can do and bring to the client there. So I've just made my coffee, set it down, and now I'm clicking New Project. For this, I could type in any landmark or address. Today I'm doing a landmark because I keep forgetting the address to this area, although Thule Street is a great name. As you see, once it zooms in, I get this frame. That's going to be my project site. It can be about 4 kilometers square. So you can see it can get pretty big. Make sure it's not too big compared to where you want to work, because that makes it a little bit quicker to work with. But once I select my site like this, I can give it a name here. It's going to give me all of this area correctly geolocated with the terrain, with weather and wind data baked in. I don't know what that process looks like for you guys today, but compared to what I did before, this is slightly quicker. Now, normally I would click here. That takes a few minutes, so I'll just jump to the result instead. Let's see if we can't move this. It's going to give me something like this. So you see here, we have terrain, It's geolocated, and it's with some built-in hidden data that I'm going to use for my analysis later. Now, that doesn't look like much, I know. So let's see if we can populate this with some more fun stuff. So I go into my library and I order data. From here, I can add data on buildings, on terrain, on roads, and property boundaries. These are freely available public data that Forma pulls and pushes directly into the product. If you have better data from any other source, you can import that. If you want to edit any of this once you put it in, you can do that. This is just a very quick way to get started. Once you've loaded it, you click it, add it, and it's added to your project. And I can show you what that looks like because I have prepared a little bit so you don't have to wait for the different things being loaded. So you can see here, I've placed some buildings. Some have great detail, some do not. That's the publicly available data. Remember, this can get you quickly started. You can edit, change, import, do whatever you want to this. We know that a lot of customers in a central location like this, they often buy better data. So what would that look like, right? Well, you can go back to your library and you can click on this import button here. You just drag something in, then you can geolocate it and place it and replace whatever you want to replace. Doing that, I very quickly, this is from Vu City. I got an export from there, placed it in, geolocated, and suddenly I have a much better model. This is also something I could have drawn in any other software or in Forma, but since I already had it and it's data that I subscribe to or have anyways, this is a great way to get started on an elevated level. I've also added some roads, those are native to Forma, and some building sites. Now this model looks better, but we're not done yet, right? So for setup to be complete, we can add some more details. We can add vegetation. It both looks nice, but it also impacts some of the analysis. I need to add a site limit to understand where I'm working, why I'm working there, maybe some zones to markate where I want to run my analysis later, not just on my site, but maybe I want to include my neighbors. I'm sure you've experienced it's easier to get planning approval if you're not only designing a good project, but also a good neighbor, right? So if you don't have any detrimental effect on your neighbors, well, it's easier to get approval. So you can show that by including them in your analysis zone. This is also where you can add constraints to make sure that nobody working on the project builds too tall or outside of bounds. You can add roads and railroads, any other volume you need, anything to make it just so to make sure you're ready to sketch. And once you've done that, and don't worry, we'll share a lot of learning material so you can get started with this quickly. Once you've done that, you should have something like this. So you can see there's some nice greens here now. There are two different sites, one small and one larger, and I've added some constraints on them as well. And that's pretty much it for setup. We did some shortcuts here, but the whole process of this normally takes 10 to 20 minutes to get a geo-reference model with detailed surroundings, and we're ready to sketch. You can leave it here if you want. You can just take this and export it to Revit, if that's your preferred sketch software. You can live link it to Rhino and continue working there, or you can export it as an OBJ and even use it in, let's say, SketchUp. So it can be a great way to just set up context quickly, even if you decide not to design in Forma. If you have any questions to set up, please add them in the Q&A, and Ida and Anouk will make sure to answer them. Now, let's very quickly look at some design options. So, as Anouk said, we had some great tools for designing natively in Forma. First of all, we have something called a basic building. I'll start with a simple cube over here. Try that again. Got a little bit too eager and clicked too soon. Let's see. Let's start with a basic building, maybe just a few floors of that. to get a good base. And then let's do a line building. Now, notice something as I'm drawing, right? We can do line building on top of the other one, actually. A few things I want you to notice as I'm drawing. So once I place this, my numbers, area numbers, they tally automatically. The other thing is whenever I select a tool to draw with, to another basic building, I get more options down here. And so most of what I'm doing in Forma is parametric, so I can quickly sort of change, edit, do whatever I want. A normal workflow here would be to keep adding and subtracting, modeling with this until I have a proposal I think looks good and that fits the overall square footage brief of my project. What did the client want? Can I make that into a volume that has the correct depth, height, that fits with the site and fits with what I know would work at this place in the world? Once I've done that, I can go deeper, right? So first of all, let's see, I actually know what the client wants this to be. So maybe I know there should be some commercial space. There should also be some residential, and yeah, maybe this can be commercial as well. So let's add that. That's going to show up here, both as square footage, but also as percentage. So it's an easy way for me to keep track as I'm drawing. I can focus on designing and not on keeping track of my area stats. So focus on where we actually create value, right? Once I've done that and I've seen, okay, now I'm on board with my stats. Normally I would run a little analysis to make sure that worked, but today we'll run the analysis at the end. I can go one step deeper. So I can go in and add floor plans here if I want to. For those of you who know Rhino, it's pretty similar. So I have my full floor stack here. I have my plan here, and I have my 3D model here. So I can see everywhere what's happening at once. Let's do something quick and dirty here. I'll add a core to the middle of all of them. I'll tell Forma that it is a core. That might be important for area metric tallying correctly. And then let's just do two big sort of these areas here. Let's see, I'll make sure that that's set as a unit because that's going to mean it's counted correctly. I can also select my two top floors here and maybe do like a roof terrace towards the water. That could be nice. And also make sure at the ground floor that it's actually possible to, you know, get in and out of the building. That's also a nice service to give to my tenants. If I wanted to, this is also the level. Let's go into the neighboring building here. I can also go in and say, okay, you know what? Just quickly to check, let's add some parking to this just to see how many spots and how efficient it is. If I wanted to, I can then move all of this down to a basement level. And suddenly I have, you know, a pretty decent proposal, quickly made, that I can get a grasp of. If I want to detail this further, there are some great tools in our 3D sketch. I'll show you the end result of something you can get from that later, but I'll show you one thing now that I think is pretty cool. Now, for any of you who have worked with massing and modeling design tools before, I'm sure that's most of you, you'll recognize most of the tools that are in 3D Sketch. This is a mode that we're working on integrating much closer with the rest of the tools today because we've imported this big context model. It takes a little bit of time to load it. Let's see. And what I wanted to show you is a pretty cool way to use this. You can use it also just to build models, right? But what I normally do is I use it for facades because it's a great way to add some, you know, visual interest, but also since my analysis are very fine meshed, I can use my facades to actually get an understanding of how much daylight, for instance, hits what I would think would end up as glazing. So I can be very sort of detailed about what I want my design to do, how I want it to perform. Right? Now, what's cool here, you can see there's a lot of stuff I can do here, but I can actually group this. And for any of you that know SketchUp or Revit, AutoCAD, this is like a block or a component. That means that if I edit this one now, I edit all of them. And most of you will know what that means. So if I, do a smaller, let's do that, let's pull that in, right? I can very quickly design something that will look like a facade and perform like a facade. And I think that's pretty cool. We'll look at how we can use that in a minute. The last thing I want to show you here, though, first on the design part is if you're more comfortable sketching in other tools, that's completely fine. That's, as Anouk said, what we want to do with Forma is connect it to as many tools as possible. There's a great extension here that can connect it directly to Rhino. So you can just export the context to Rhino, design in Rhino, and it's live pushed back into this model where you can run all your analysis in Forma. If you draw in SketchUp, you can import SketchUp models easily. I can actually show you what that could look like. Let's see if I can find the right model. And you can push it to Revit and push it back for analysis. This is just a SketchUp model of the Burj Khalifa. It's maybe slightly too big for London, but it took me all of 1 minute to try that out. And if you have a more, a proposal that might be more realistic, you can push that in as well. That was design. So you can see you can very quickly import something or link it to other softwares you use, but there are great tools native to Forma that can get you quickly at least started, right? So you can get the masking right, and it really gets powerful once you connect it to the analysis. So let's take a moment to look at that. And then the question becomes, why analysis, right? And the answer to that is also, why not build Burj Khalifa in the middle of London? And I'm sure most of you have some ideas of why not, right? I'm sure some of you will think, well, it's going to cast shadow on all the neighbors. It's going to create some turbulence, right? You guys know that because you work with this every day. But to convince a client or a municipality or somebody living close to it that what you're doing is a good idea, or maybe not a good idea, it's better if you have some data and some insights. And that's where the analysis comes in. So let's skip to one of the proposals we've done before. That's the one we started with. And you can see it's completely built up the same way that I showed you before. So it's a basic model that's been added floor plans to. So I can get area metrics on my buildings, my unit distribution, and my parking. And I've added these facade elements because they shield from the sun, and I can edit them quickly and iterate if I see that it's still too much solar heat gain on the facade. All of this sounds good. How do we do it in real life? So we're actually looking at an analysis this entire time. Area metrics is an analysis. It gives you where are they, how much of it, how much ground coverage, site area, efficiency factor, number of units, how efficient is my parking. That's good, but it's never what I thought was the most fun. What's most fun is all the analysis that sort of tell you how does your building perform. Any analysis is as easy as this. You select what area you want included. For this one, I'm just going to do, you can see I've drawn some different zones here. I'm just going to do my north side here. I could do the entire model if I wanted to. I set some stats related to the specific analysis, and then I run it. Easy as that. What we have here is the sun hour analysis, the daylight potential, wind, microclimate, noise, solar energy, and then lastly, and the newest one, which is the only one I'm going to show you how to click and do, is the embodied carbon. There are some limitations to this because it's in beta and it's completely new, but all you need to do to get an understanding of the embodied carbon of your projects is to set some analytical properties. So what building type is it? What type of envelope and window to wall ratio is it? And what's the structure? That's it. You can get much more detailed if you want to, but you don't have to. So even junior designers can get some value from this and learn through iteration and feedback what more sustainable looks like. Then they can run the analysis. As you see, it's pretty quick, and they will get an idea of how much embodied carbon is in a building like this with the settings we had, and where does that actually come from. An important thing to note about the analysis is all of them will have a little question mark here. If you click on Learn More, it will show you both how to use it and read the results, but it's also going to show you the documentation for how we built it, what's happening in the background. That allows you to have some confidence in what we're doing. We know you live on your client's trust. So of course, we need to have you trust us as well. And so we're being very transparent about everything we're doing. How and why should you use the analysis, right? Well, once you've read some of them, you can actually click on the compare button over here, where you can compare different proposals against each other, or different versions of the same proposal, or just the same proposal with different analysis. What that does, it allows you to do something like this. So here I have my proposal. I can see that the daylight of it looks good. If I want to inspect some of this, I can see how much sun are on the different parts. As Kiva said, you know, if I want to do the BRE analysis, this could be a great way to do it. I can see wind comfort levels. And as we noticed before, there are some issues here. So maybe I want to build something that can sort of dam up or stop this wind. I can also see that what I was hoping would be roof terraces are not pleasant to be at. I guess my bar here is sort of hiding this. It's not that pleasant to be at. So maybe I need to build something taller, fencing or glass walls or whatever around this. Maybe I need to add some vegetation to sort of slow the wind here. But for noise, well, I'm actually very good. I might need to do something on the facades down here if those are going to be, you know, residential, but most of it is looking decent. And this courtyard is really, really good. And I can go deeper and I can go deeper, but you get the idea. I'm getting the insights, I'm getting them early. And as an architect, I'm able to respond quickly, you know, change my designs based on what I'm seeing and have better designs. And also, and really important to me at least, better conversations with my clients, with the municipality, with the planning authorities, because we're talking from the same picture, we're talking from the same understanding, and we're talking based on data. The last thing I want to show you with this, we showed you a London project now. We did some design tooling that was very specific to bigger sites. It does not have to be. So this is a site in Oxford. We used our tool for row housing here. We used some parking on the ground, right? That's a test bit extension that lives over here. And you can even do, see, you know, smaller sites, just one building. You can still get a lot of benefits from the analysis. It doesn't have to be this big, big project. Once you run it, if you live link it to Rhino, it's in Rhino, you can push it from there. If you have it in SketchUp, you can push it to SketchUp, run your renderings from there. Here, you can push it to Revit. It sends all the context, the entire model, and it actually gives the model a higher level of detail. So it's going to add floors, walls, everything you need to Revit. If you need to do any inside analysis, for instance, on daylight or anything else, you can do it through Revit Insights. And because there's a new connection to the rendering engine in Revit, you can also get great visuals from there. But you're only doing that work after you tested and verified in Forma that this is the best proposal for you to continue working on. So that's our idea of how you can use Forma to create better spaces, more sustainable cities. You can create more sustainable and better outdoor areas through our analysis. And through the new suite of tools, you can also get better embodied carbon and a better understanding of how the building itself actually performs. I think that was what I had to say today. Anouk, are there any questions we should take right now, or
Yeah, we can. Great, thank you. It was a good demo, I guess. There is one question, and I was just trying to figure this one out. Is it possible to make a solar analysis by the hour?
Yeah, great. Great question. And let's just jump into that. So all the analysis I've ever run by proposal is actually here, right? So let's just add a scenario analysis. And since Gifa already mentioned it, please chime in with your insights here. What's pretty cool is I can get sun hours. This is January 30th. I guess it needs to be March 21st on the BRE. I ran it on March 1st, but you can sort of get the idea, right? I can see sort of how much of this does actually have the hours required. And I guess it's more than 1.5 hours minimum, right? So I can either sort of see, okay, what out of this has more than 2 hours? I can get the percentage of that. I can also add some inspection points and see sort of how much do the different parts actually get. But there are different ways to filter, and all of this can be exported. You can also export it as
add that you can filter by time interval if you're interested in a particular time of day as well.
Yeah, very true. Thanks, Eva. So there is the option here to sort of be much more specific, right? And again, with it now I have everything that's over 2 hours and within time interval that makes sense for me.
This is great. Can you now do this also for solar analysis?
This is okay. Sorry.
No, it was a great answer. Just not
the wrong one. Sure. So I mean the yeah. Or do you mean the
yeah, the solar panel.
That one. Sure.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's jump into that one. I just need it to load a little bit.
If
yes.
This brings me to another point, or actually on the same topic, but if things are not possible at the moment, or if you see any limitations, Forma is a platform which is under development. We've released a Forma last year in May, and we already developed 170 new functionalities. So if you have any features or any functions that you are missing, any adjustments you would like to see in Forma, please use the help function in Forma to give your ideas, ask your questions, because it's very valuable for us to know how you would like to use Forma in your projects. So, but I don't know if the answer is yes or no, but just.
No, but it's a great point. And we're always looking for feedback on anything. So if you click on the help button down here, and contact support or add messages here, it goes directly to product. So they're actually the one answering your messages, and that also means they learn from what you're asking, what is the need out there. You have multiple different channels to get that information back to them, but this is a really good way for you to contact them directly. For the solar energy analysis, if that's the correct one, no, you cannot filter on sort of time of day. It's a year. What does it look like? You can filter on sort of what surface do I want. So if it's the facade and the roof, if it's only the facade, if it's only something that angles the correct way on the facade, like those are things you can set in. And from that, you can actually configure some solar panels and get some annual output. So it's a broader analysis, let's say, where the sun hour is very targeted and specific.
Yes. Okay, thank you. The other one, is there a way to have more control of adding trees? For example, existing trees as per a tree survey.
Well, the short, I would say yes and no, right? So let's take a look at what that looks like now. If the need is to place trees exactly where they are now, to sort of build around them or keep them on the site, you know, the way we add trees to Forma now is to a tree line or area with trees. None of those are super specific. What I sometimes do is I turn on my my satellite image below, and then I see where the trees are. That's one way of doing it. You can import in DXF, so you have sort of a, you know, sometimes you have an X marks the spot where the tree is, or you have a tree symbol, right? But let's say there was a tree here I wanted to catch. I'll draw the shortest line possible, right? And it's going to give me a tree pretty much in that area. So sometimes that is enough. I do want to highlight, though, we have a great extension that I didn't add to this project. Let's look at that here. We have a great extension called Thicket. It's a really cool tool. I would advise you to look into it, because there you can place individual trees and you have much more of a control over what they look like, how big they are, and those can be, you know, snapped to a DXF you import where you have tree placement. At the moment, there's not
I was going
automatic.
to endorse that extension as well. We've used it a lot and really like it. We know that a lot of our team or maybe clients, you know, maybe don't like the cylindrical trees that come by default, and Thicket is creates a much more appealing visual. I think maybe the only caution might be that I think it doesn't operate the same way in terms of some of the analysis. Is that right?
I haven't. I thought I started thinking about that as you spoke, because I haven't asked about that actually. I've just seen that they are added to vegetation layers, so I've assumed that it reads them the same way. But I'll need to double check that. Is the shorter answer. But this is actually the Thicket extension in action. Here I've added 2 different types. There's a lot of great customizability here to make it look better than what's currently possible in Forma native tools. And that's, you know, one of the great benefits of the extensions, that people can, you know, deep dive on really cool stuff that we don't really have the chance to explore at the moment.
Great. And to stay in the trees, does the placement of the trees affect the embodied carbon analysis or the calculation of embodied carbon?
It shouldn't for the embodied carbon. For that, I would say, let's actually do that detour and click on this one. There is a great all the analysis have this overarching article with introduction to analysis, how to use them, how they work, and it also has this pretty cool database here to show what is included in the different analysis, right? And you said embodied carbon, it might actually be too new to be included here. I'll make sure to let product know. So the short answer at the moment, I don't know, but I don't assume so. I think it's just what's in the building itself.
Great, thank you. And the last one for now, is it possible to measure the radiation surfaces in watts per square meter?
Yeah, I think, let's see, where was the proposal? It was here. So the output at the moment, let's go back to the, so it is, you know, kilowatt hours per square meter, both for how much hits the facade. Also, if I select different areas of it, it's going to sort of show for that different part of the model, right? So I can be pretty granular here. And the same, it's, are you thinking how much output of the solar panel per square meter. Is that the number you're looking at? Because if it is, then the answer is no at the moment. So you'll have to do some calculations based on how much panels have you added and how much output is assumed to be gotten from that.
Okay, great. Thank you. Thank you.
One more point I want to add there, though, that can be pretty good to know is for the area calculation, it's good that it happens live and it happens on the side, but most of the time I would have to present it in a different way than this, right? There is some schema or spreadsheet or just an InDesign document, and I want it to look a certain way. That can be exported as a CSV, which is a file you can open with any spreadsheet like Excel. From here, I can also set a camera position and export any view that I want to make sure that all my images look the same. And every time I update something and export it, it's going to show up the same way in, for instance, InDesign. So there are some export tools directly that way as well. And what we didn't even touch upon, but you'll have to search that out yourself, is the newly added Forma board, where you can sort of detail and document your design process. And it's a great tool for inviting people who are not architects, maybe not have access to these kinds of design tools, because they can have viewer access and add their thoughts, ideas, details here as well. So, they don't have to open like a big Revit model and try to figure out what's up and what's down. They can go into Forma, they can see it in board, and then they can jump to the proposals and sort of scan around and see how the project looks. And you can even do that with the Revit model, push it back, and it's a great way to sort of show it, and they can run analysis on it and get a better understanding in their own time before you meet.
Great. I would say thank you very much. There are no open questions at this stage anymore. So thank you, Quiva, for being here, joining us in the webinar. And we hope we give all of you the information to get started. And there's lots of content available online. Use Google, YouTube. How can I get my proposal from Forma to Revit? You will find the videos that are suitable for your question. The recording of the session will be sent after the webinar, and we hope you enjoyed it. Thank you.
Thanks for your time, guys.
Thank you, everyone.